Well, the government says it doesn't think the travel restrictions will affect the delivery of COVID-19 vaccines, which will come from Belgium. And as he has done every Monday morning since March, Dr. Duncan Robertson from Loughborough University's School of Business and Economics joins us for the final time this year. I hope you don't mind me calling you just Duncan.
No, absolutely.
Duncan, I mean, come on, this year and this weekend has affected us all a great deal with the I guess to some degree a surprise announcement on Saturday by Boris Johnson that, it feels like Christmas has been cancelled.
Well, I mean, we're all sort of looking to sort of get rid of it this year, but of course the announcement a couple of days ago does really mean that something else is happening. So it's really that, due to the testing of what is in the actual virus, when people get tested, some of those go off and get sequenced. And what that means is you can see what strain or what variant of the virus is in different places. And what we've seen recently is we've got a particular variant that's spreading very rapidly, particularly in Kent, London, and the east. But it's also been detected around the country now. So this is the real problem that we're sort of putting in control measures for a virus that we think spreads in a certain way. But of course now there's another one, if you like, a better one, better at transmitting, that's affecting more people. So it's spreading very rapidly, and that's why the government had to impose, tier 4 restrictions a couple of days ago.
What else do we know about the new strain of the virus?
Well, the point is it is being detected relatively recently, because of course, these viruses, mutate and they're slightly different ones that sort of travel around the population. But what was noted by, the scientists is basically there's this new strain. It's called the variant under investigation 2020-12/01. Now, that sounds very, very dull, but, it's very important because really what they're saying is actually, the growth rate, which is basically how fast it spreads, is significantly higher. And we talk about the R value in the country. At the moment, it's hovering above 1, just above 1. But really, this variant is putting that R value up between about 0.4 and 0.9. So that means that it's spreading, far more rapidly than it was before. And that's the real significant thing. So we don't really know how bad it is if you get it. But I think we can assume it's about the same. But it's really how fast it spreads is the critical thing.
And we've been hearing, infection levels are increasing, alarming sort of levels, I think, of this new strain. And as we've heard, London and the southeast have now gone into tier 4. Just explain what tier 4 actually means.
Well, it's really like it's getting more to the stage of the first lockdown, which I'm sure we all remember, which basically where the advice is to stay at home. And unlike the second lockdown, of course, children are breaking up from school, so that means that sort of transmission is happening. So really, it's advising people in those tier 4 areas to really stay at home unless you for exercise and that sort of thing. But I think what the worry is, certainly from my point of view, is that this variant will have spread and has spread across the rest of the country. And really, I think I wouldn't be too surprised if we see that sort of message, across the entirety of the country, maybe even before Christmas. So I think, so that's what the government may or may not do. But, from our point of view, it's about trying to minimise our risk and what can we do to prevent passing this virus on. Doesn't matter what variant it is. And that's why, minimising transmission is the big thing and not staying indoors with people, and that's really going to be the way that we can do our part for really not passing it on.
Are you suggesting that perhaps we could go into tier 4, within the next few days?
Well, it depends what happens. And of course, what we see is the number of infections going up around the country at different rates. So actually, if you look at Leicester and Leicestershire, it's relatively stable. But of course, the thing is that it takes time for these results to come. Well, it takes time for people to get tested and for these results to come through. So the risk is that, it's really about hospitals getting overwhelmed. And that's the real problem. So, as I say, we started lockdown 2 with a relatively low number of people in hospital. But now we've got significant numbers in hospital at the moment, sort of getting up to the levels of the maximum of around 20,000. So we've got to say 19,000 at the moment. And this is the real problem, that, if hospitals are full, that's a really bad thing. And so anything that can be done to sort of prevent the spread is advisable. And so I wouldn't be surprised if, Tier 4 is announced across the country, but we'll just have to see.
And the advice is obviously we're in tier sort of between 1 and 3. We are still allowed to meet family on Christmas Day, but I think the message is sort of becoming loud and clear that don't do it unless you absolutely have to.
Well, put it this way: I'm not doing it, and I'd really like to do it, but I'm not.
Yeah, and I know this means a lot of disruption for a lot of people, and there'll be lots of people that'll be, will have made plans that they now have to change. Food perhaps that's going to be wasted, and people's mental health, which means people will end up spending Christmas Day on their own. So there's lots to take in, isn't there, Duncan, at the moment?
That's right. It's absolutely horrible. But the point, I think, is, the vaccine is on its way, and, hopefully people, that we know will the sort of over 80s and frontline health workers are starting to be vaccinated. And that's really the hope, the way out of this is vaccination. So it's really getting that vaccination across the country as fast as possible. And then really just thinking, okay, this winter is going to be a bit rough, but, the point is we can have better winters coming ahead.
Absolutely. Can I just, your thoughts really briefly on, borders being shut for us and what this means for, we've heard about, supermarkets saying, no, they've got enough stock to last. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, supply chains tend to operate on a just-in-time basis, which basically means that they don't have huge amounts of stock. So, I don't know, if you're a car factory, you might not have stocks of bits to make cars. So any sort of disruption is going to cause a real problem going forward. And of course, supermarkets have been proactive, basically thinking, okay, we can see what could happen, the disruption, and so therefore they have, buffer stocks, if you like, or high levels of stock for certainly, the Christmas period. I mean, it may be in the wrong place because, of course, people may have thought that they were going to say, places in the country which are now in Tier 4. So, that there may be some stock in the wrong place, but really there's enough stock for the next couple of weeks. And hopefully, we're hearing those good signs about getting some sort of way of keeping that stock flowing. But of course, it's a tricky winter.
It certainly is. Look, Duncan, thank you so much for joining us regularly on the mid-morning show and, sharing your thoughts and giving us advice as well. Can I wish you a wonderful Christmas? I know it's going to be all very strange for all of us, but I hope it's a happy one and a healthy one and a safe one, Duncan. Thank you.
And you. And speak to you in 2021.
Absolutely. Dr. Duncan Robertson here on BBC Radio Leicester with some of his thoughts from Loughborough University School of Business and Economics.